There comes a time in life when you realize not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Not everyone who claps for you wants to see you win. Some people will walk beside you just to study your footsteps, only to trip you when you least expect it. And the ones you trusted with your soul, they might just be the first to twist the knife in your back. You ever look into the eyes of someone and wonder, how could you pretend so well? That kind of pain, it hits deeper than a wound. Betrayal doesn't come from enemies, it comes from those who said they loved you, from the ones who called you family. But listen closely, that pain, that betrayal, it's not your weakness, it's your awakening. You weren't broken, you were being shown who was never real. The fake ones come dressed in loyalty, but their actions betray their disguise. And while it hurts, God doesn't remove people from your life to punish you. He removes them to protect you. So now let's talk. Let's talk about how to deal with the liars, the users, the ones who only came to take. Let's talk about how to rise. People who hurt you repeatedly don't deserve a place in your peace. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. You've been making excuses for them. You tell yourself, maybe they're just going through something, or they didn't mean it like that. You replay their words, trying to twist them into something softer so it hurts less. You think that by understanding their pain, it will somehow erase yours. But it doesn't. All it does is prolong your suffering. Every time you justify their behavior, you're giving them another bullet to shoot at your trust. You're not being compassionate, you're being manipulated. There's a difference between being forgiving and being blind. And deep down, you feel it. That quiet whisper in your soul telling you this isn't love, this isn't respect. But you silence it because the fear of letting go feels bigger than the pain of holding on. You'd rather explain their betrayal than face the loneliness of cutting ties. But how long will you bleed for someone who doesn't even acknowledge your wounds? How long will you keep giving your light to people who leave you in the dark? Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to walk away. The ones who hurt you the most are often the ones you never thought would. That's what makes it so hard. It's not just the betrayal. It's the disbelief. You sit there wondering how someone who said they cared could be so careless with your heart. And instead of calling it out, you shrink. You protect their image even to yourself. You say, they're not usually like this. But if this keeps showing up, then maybe this is who they really are. Don't ignore patterns just because you're emotionally invested in a person. Real love does not require you to lie to yourself. It doesn't demand that you suffer in silence. If someone repeatedly makes you question your worth, they're not a friend, a partner, or a supporter. They're a weight. And no matter how much history you've got, history doesn't make hurt acceptable. You're not obligated to carry the burden of someone else's emotional immaturity. You are not their punching bag, their emotional experiment, or their temporary distraction. Stop making excuses for the pain they caused and start honoring the truth. Because until you acknowledge it, healing will never begin. You'll keep repeating the same cycle, hoping for change while they stay the same. What makes it harder is that you want to see the best in people. You look past the hurt because you believe in their potential. You see the soft parts of them, the glimpses of who they could be if only they tried. But potential doesn't pay for your peace. Possibility doesn't excuse emotional neglect. And love, real love, doesn't operate in the realm of maybe someday. You've cried enough tears over people who couldn't even say sorry and mean it. You've sacrificed your voice just to keep the peace. But here's what you need to hear. Peace without respect isn't peace. It's emotional suppression. And every time you allow someone to hurt you without consequences, you teach them that your boundaries are optional. You train them to believe that you'll always come back no matter what they do. And that's not love. That's conditioning. You are not responsible for teaching someone how to treat you with decency. They either do or they don't. And if they don't, then it's not your job to stay. You can still pray for them, still wish them well, but you can do all of that from a distance. It's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes the reason they keep hurting you is because they know you'll let them. You've built a tolerance for mistreatment, not because you're weak, but because you're loyal to the wrong people. You were taught to hold on, to fight for your relationships, to forgive endlessly. But no one taught you how to recognize when that forgiveness is being weaponized against you. No one told you that being a good person doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. You've been conditioned to call it love when it's really just survival. You hold on because you think letting go means you failed. But you didn't fail. You were just faithful to the wrong people. And it's time to stop. You don't have to announce your exit. You don't owe them a speech. Just remove your energy, your time, your heart, and don't go back just because they promised to change. Real change doesn't need an audience. It proves itself in action. Stop looking for potential in people who have shown you their pattern. Stop making excuses for people who treat your heart like it's disposable. You deserve more. And deep down, you know that. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly defending someone who keeps hurting you. You spend so much time trying to explain their behavior to yourself and others that you forget to take care of your own well-being. You think, if I just love them a little harder, maybe they'll change. But love is not a magic wand. You cannot pour enough love into someone to fix what they refuse to acknowledge. And meanwhile, you're draining yourself. You walk on eggshells, rephrase your words, minimize your feelings, all just to avoid conflict. But you are not built to bend forever. Sooner or later, you break. And when you do, they'll act surprised. They'll say, I didn't know it was that serious, even though you cried in silence for nights on end. Pain becomes your second language, and still, you defend them. But ask yourself this, why do you have to shrink to keep them close? Why must your soul be silent for someone to stay? That's not love. That's emotional captivity. And the only way out is to stop making excuses. Let the truth hurt once instead of letting the lie drain you for years. You are worthy of a love that doesn't make you suffer. What's even more painful is how you start to blame yourself. You wonder if you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But that's what fake people do. They make you question your reality. They flip the script and twist your reactions until you're the one apologizing for being hurt. That's manipulation. And it's subtle. It doesn't come in the form of shouting. It comes in silence and dismissive remarks. In your overreact, they chip away at your confidence until you're afraid to speak up. And you, being the loving soul that you are, keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. But listen, the doubt is the benefit. Your doubt is your sign. It's the voice of your spirit screaming, this is not right. And you can ignore it, suppress it, or justify it, but it won't go away. It'll keep showing up in anxiety, in restless nights, in that constant feeling that something is off. You were never too much. You were just too real for someone who wasn't ready. Stop letting people label your strength as weakness. You deserve to feel safe in your relationships, and safety starts with no longer defending those who keep harming you. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. And when you keep letting things slide, you're not being strong. You're being silent in your suffering. You're telling them that your love has no limits, no boundaries, no consequences. And that's dangerous. Because the wrong people will take that silence and stretch it until your soul snaps. They will drain you, then blame you for being empty. And the worst part, you'll start to believe it. You'll look in the mirror and see someone who's lost their light. All because you kept giving chances to people who never earned them. But here's the truth. Your heart is not a charity case. Your love is not a rehabilitation center. You are allowed to close the door on people who keep hurting you. You are allowed to say enough. You are allowed to stop explaining why. If they can't see your worth, that's not your failure. That's their loss. And you don't need to feel guilty for choosing yourself. You've done enough. You've tried enough. Now it's time to protect your peace like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. If you take nothing else from this, take this. Stop shrinking for people who refuse to grow. Stop apologizing for expecting the bare minimum. Respect, honesty, effort. You are not hard to love. You are just trying to love people who have no idea what love really is. And that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to stop allowing it. You owe yourself the love you keep trying to give to everyone else. You don't have to be bitter, but you do have to be better at boundaries. You can still have a soft heart with a steel spine. And anyone who makes you feel like you're too much, let them go find less. Because your heart, your peace, your joy, they are too valuable to be placed in the hands of people who treat them like options. You've cried, you've questioned, You've carried the weight long enough. Now it's time to stop making excuses for the pain they keep causing. Now it's time to stand up, not in anger, not in revenge, but in clarity. You are not here to be broken over and over again. You are here to rise. People say I'm sorry so easily, like it's a magic word meant to erase everything that happened. But apologies without change are just manipulation in disguise. You've heard those words before, haven't you? So many times that they start to lose their meaning. Every time someone says, I didn't mean to, or it won't happen again, a part of you wants to believe them because you care, because you love, because you're holding on to hope that maybe this time it'll be different. But real change doesn't speak, it acts. Real remorse isn't loud, it's consistent. You don't need another sorry, you need someone who shows up differently. Who doesn't just regret what they did, but takes accountability. Who doesn't just apologize when they're caught, but actively works not to hurt you again. It's not harsh to demand that. It's not cold to protect your peace. People will tell you you're being unforgiving, but forgiveness doesn't mean foolish. If someone breaks your heart and then thinks a few kind words can tape it back together, they never valued you in the first place. Stop getting swept up in sweet words. Start paying attention to the silence between them, to what they do when no one's watching. Every time you accept another apology without seeing any real effort to change, you're teaching them that you'll tolerate the same pattern over and over. You're telling them that your boundaries are flexible and your pain is negotiable. And that's a dangerous game to play. Because people will push you as far as you allow them to. Some won't stop until they've taken every last piece of you, and when you finally break, they'll act surprised, as if they didn't see the warning signs you dropped along the way. But let's be honest, you've been dropping signs for a long time. You've cried, you've distanced yourself, you've expressed your hurt. But when they came back with tears and apologies, you folded. Because you wanted to believe in their good side, you wanted to believe in their potential. But potential doesn't protect you, action does. If someone can't show up for you when it matters, if they only come correct when they're about to lose you, then they don't value you. They fear losing their comfort. There's a difference. Don't let a performance convince you that pain won't repeat. Words are cheap. Change is expensive. And if they're not willing to invest in change, they're not worth another chance. You've been trained to see apologies as the end of conflict, but real resolution starts when someone changes their behavior. And that's the part most people skip. Because change takes effort. It takes discomfort. It takes humility. Saying, I'm sorry is easy. Anyone can say it. But proving that they're sorry, that takes time. It takes choices that reflect remorse. It takes consistency, even when it's inconvenient. And yet, every time someone hurts you, they rush straight to the apology, hoping to skip the process and reset the connection. But you deserve more than a reset. You deserve transformation. If someone truly values you, they won't just apologize when they mess up. They'll take steps to make sure they don't mess up again. They'll hold themselves accountable, not just in front of you, but when you're not around. They'll learn your triggers, respect your space, and take responsibility without needing to be reminded. If they're not doing that, then the apology is nothing more than emotional maintenance, a way to keep you close without making any real effort to grow. You owe it to yourself to stop accepting half-hearted gestures. Your heart is not a rehearsal space for people who don't know how to love in action. One of the hardest truths you'll ever learn is that some people apologize just to manipulate your emotions. They know you have a good heart. They know you want to believe the best in them. So they use apologies as a tool, not a bridge. And you, because you care so deeply, let them back in. But every time you do, they learn that they don't need to change. They just need to say the right thing. They learn your forgiveness is automatic, that you'll sacrifice your own peace to keep the relationship alive. And that's where the damage really begins. Not just from what they did, but from what you let continue. Apologies are not a currency to buy back access to your heart. They're a promise, one that must be kept with action. If someone says they're sorry and then does the same thing next week, they're not sorry. They're using your love as leverage. You can't keep explaining your worth to someone who shows you through their actions that they don't understand it. At some point, you have to choose peace over potential. You have to stop watering dead flowers and start walking away from people who only bloom when they feel you slipping away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent after an apology. Not because you're bitter, not because you're holding a grudge, but because you're waiting to see if their actions speak louder than their words. Too many people rush to forgive, rush to reconcile, rush to return to what was, without giving it time to see if anything has truly changed. But healing doesn't come from quick fixes. It comes from seeing real growth, from watching someone rebuild what they broke. And if they're not willing to do that work, you need to ask yourself why you keep doing it for them. You deserve someone who doesn't just say they care. You deserve someone who shows up every day like they mean it. Someone who understands that trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired, and that real love means protecting your heart, not just pursuing it when it's convenient. If someone truly values your presence, they'll prove it through consistency. They won't need reminders or ultimatums. They'll take initiative because they want to, not because they fear the consequences. If you're the only one doing the emotional heavy lifting, then it's not a relationship. It's a rescue mission. And you weren't made to keep saving people who refuse to grow. You can always tell who's really sorry by what they do after the apology. It's not in the tears, not in the dramatic texts, not in the late night "I miss you" calls. It's in the discipline to not hurt you the same way again. It's in the way they handle your triggers, in the way they show up differently, even when it's hard. Love doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means learning from them, adjusting, and doing better. And if someone can't evolve, no matter how sorry they claim to be, then they're not ready for a relationship with you. They're not ready for your depth, your loyalty, your honesty. People will swear they've changed just to keep you in their life. But change doesn't come with words, it comes with sacrifice, with choosing discomfort for the sake of growth, with showing up even when it's not easy. So if you're tired of being disappointed, if you're exhausted from all the broken promises, then stop falling for their apologies. Start demanding actions. Start making your peace the standard. Stop giving your loyalty to people who only show love when they're about to lose you. You don't need another sorry. You need someone who's willing to show they're different. You've been loyal to people who've apologized just enough to stay close, but never enough to actually change. And over time, that chips away at your sense of worth. It makes you question whether your expectations are too high, whether you're asking for too much. But asking for someone to follow through on their words is not too much. It's the bare minimum. You're not difficult for wanting to feel safe. You're not unreasonable for wanting actions that match intentions. You're simply tired of being told one thing and shown another. And you're finally learning that love without action is just a story, a fantasy built on hope, not reality. The longer you keep accepting empty apologies, the more you betray your own heart. The more you settle for crumbs, the harder it becomes to believe you deserve the whole meal. But you do. You deserve steady love. You deserve growth. You deserve effort without having to beg for it. Let people be who they are, but choose wisely who you allow to stay. Not everyone who says sorry deserves a second chance. Some people need to lose access to you to finally understand your value. And that lesson begins the moment you stop believing words without proof. You were not created to be someone's second chance every time they mess up. You were not born to play the role of the forgiver while others continue to play the role of the destroyer. There comes a time when your healing demands you stop listening to apologies that never lead to growth. When your soul gets tired of replaying the same cycle. When you finally look around and see that nothing changes unless you change what you allow. And when you reach that moment, everything becomes clear. You stop asking people to care. You stop begging them to change. You stop losing sleep over their broken promises. Instead, you start listening to actions. You start watching patterns. You start protecting your heart like it's sacred. Because it is. Apologies might sound beautiful, but peace feels better. Words might comfort you for a night, but consistency builds a future. You've cried enough over people who never deserved access to your heart. Now it's time to guard it. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You've grown. You've learned. And now, you don't need another apology. You need proof. Let people say what they want. You're not moved by voices anymore. You're moved by action. Sometimes the very thing you're fighting so hard to hold together is the exact thing God is trying to pull apart. You pray for peace, but you cling to chaos. You ask for clarity, but you're afraid to let go of confusion. And deep down, you know it. Something isn't right. That relationship, that friendship, that place you keep running back to, it's draining you. But instead of walking away, you keep patching the cracks. You try to fix what's broken, not realizing it's breaking for a reason. God doesn't destroy to harm you. He separates to save you. But when you've tied your worth to what you're trying to fix, letting go feels like failure, feels like quitting. But it's not. It's wisdom, it's obedience, it's trust. You can't keep praying for healing and then hold on to what's making you sick. You can't ask God to lead you forward while your feet are cemented in what's falling apart. At some point, you have to ask yourself, am I trying to fix this because God told me to, or because I'm scared to let go? Just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's faithful to your growth. Some things aren't broken, they're done. And that's okay. You see, God hears the conversations you never do. He sees the hearts of people you keep trying to trust. He watches the way they treat you when you're not useful to them. And sometimes his way of protecting you is through separation. But you keep picking up the phone, sending that text, giving another chance, because you don't want to believe that the people you love can harm you. You don't want to believe that something you prayed for might not be meant for you after all. But faith isn't about forcing outcomes. It's about surrendering outcomes. When God starts shaking things, removing people, closing doors, it's not punishment. It's preparation. He's trying to free you from the things that would sabotage your destiny if you kept carrying them forward. And yet, your heart is so attached, you confuse his protection with pain. But what hurts now might be the very thing that heals you later. What feels like loss could be divine rescue. Don't run back just because you're lonely. Don't try to repair what God is clearly unraveling. If it was meant to last, it wouldn't take this much pain to hold it in place. Sometimes the letting go is the blessing. It's hard to admit that some things we deeply wanted weren't meant to stay. We wrap our identity in certain relationships, in certain environments, and when they start to shift, we panic. We think we're failing. We think we've done something wrong. But often it's not that at all. It's that God is answering your prayers in a way you didn't expect. You asked for peace, and he's removing what disturbs it. You asked for strength, and he's testing your ability to walk away. You asked for clarity, and he's exposing truth through loss. But instead of trusting the process, you keep showing up to broken situations trying to play savior. You weren't called to fix what God is breaking. You were called to trust that his plan is greater than your preference. When God removes something, he's never taken away your future. He's preparing it, but you can't step into new doors while holding hands with what's closing behind you. Let go of the need to fix it. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the fantasy. God's plan doesn't need your control. It needs your surrender. What you lose in the breaking, he will restore in the rebuilding. Stronger, wiser, and better than before. You have to be brave enough to let dead things die. Stop giving CPR to connections God has already buried. Just because it once brought you joy doesn't mean it still belongs in your journey. We grow, we shift, we evolve, and not everyone grows with us. That's not cruelty, that's life. That's spiritual maturity. But when you try to keep fixing something that's meant to end, you delay your healing. You block your blessings. You're standing in the way of what God is trying to make new. And he can't give you what's next if your hands are full of what's expired. Think about all the times you begged for something to work out only to realize later it was draining your spirit. Think about all the sleepless nights, the silent tears, the emotional weight. Do you really want to go back to that? Or are you just afraid of what life looks like without it? Ooh. Faith isn't always comfortable. Letting go isn't always peaceful. But staying stuck in something God is dismantling will always cost you more. More time, more energy, more of yourself. Don't fight God's will just because it looks different than your desires. What's falling apart might just be setting you free. Some people are only in your life for a season, and the danger is trying to make them permanent. You saw potential, you saw goodness, you built a future in your mind, and now that it's fading, you're trying to superglue what God is gently removing. But holding on out of fear is not faith, it's control. And that's where we get stuck. We confuse being strong with enduring what no longer serves us. But strength is knowing when to walk away. Wisdom is understanding that just because something feels right doesn't mean it's aligned with God's plan. There are relationships that were only meant to teach you, not carry you. There are jobs that were only meant to build your discipline, not define your destiny. There are seasons that serve their purpose, and now they're over. The more you try to hold them together, the more exhausted and disconnected you feel. You weren't made to live in the past. You were made to grow forward, and growth requires surrender. Trust that if God is breaking it apart, He's doing it with love. He's doing it to protect your calling, your peace, and your future. Don't cling to what's familiar when God is calling you to what's divine. You're not the one who holds the universe together. You're not responsible for fixing what's not yours to heal. That burden isn't yours to carry. So many of us live weighed down because we made it our mission to repair what God has clearly removed. We think love means never giving up. We think loyalty means holding on, no matter how bad it hurts. But real love doesn't destroy you. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice your joy, your identity, or purpose. When God breaks something apart, He's doing it because it no longer fits where you're going. It doesn't mean those people are bad or that you failed. It simply means their part in your story has ended. And the most powerful thing you can do is accept that. Stop chasing closure in places God has already exited. Stop looking for signs in what's been silent for months. Sometimes the absence is the answer. Sometimes the distance is the direction. You've outgrown places you're still trying to shrink into. You've matured past mindsets you keep trying to fix. Let God finish what He started. Even if it hurts, even if you don't understand it yet. Some peace only comes after the release. It's time to stop praying for restoration when God is calling you to release. He's not asking you to fix it. He's asking you to trust Him. Trust that what He removes, He replaces. Trust that what He breaks, He rebuilds. Trust that your future is not behind you, it's ahead of you. But you won't find it by going back to what nearly broke you. You've cried enough tears over people who didn't value you. You've spent enough nights trying to figure out what you did wrong. Maybe the truth is you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe it just wasn't meant to last. And maybe God is doing for you what you wouldn't do for yourself. Maybe He's ending it so you can finally begin. But you've got to let Him. You've got to stop fixing and start trusting. Because what God builds, no one can break. But what you force, He can't bless. So walk away not because you're bitter, but because you're finally ready to be better. Trust the silence. Trust the shift. Trust the separation. God isn't punishing you. He's protecting the promise. Let Him lead. Let Him work. And stop trying to save what He's already set you free from. There comes a point in your life when you realize that not everyone around you is meant to stay. The more you grow, the more you start to see people for who they really are, not for who you hoped they'd be. You learn that loyalty is rare and energy is contagious. So you stop inviting everyone into your space and you stop explaining your worth. You start protecting your peace the way you used to protect other people's feelings. It's not about arrogance, it's about awareness. You've been through too much to let just anyone sit at your table. Your heart, your dreams, your time, they're sacred. And when you give that to the wrong people, it always costs you more than it gives. That's why keeping your circle small isn't being antisocial. It's being wise. It's knowing that some people only come close to study you, to use you, to compete with you in silence. But a small circle of the right people can carry you further than a crowd ever will. When your standards are high, you don't settle for fake love, temporary loyalty, or forced connections. You're not better than anyone. You're just finally honoring what you bring to the table. When you keep your circle small, you create space for real connection. You don't need dozens of people around you. You need the ones who get you, who root for you in silence, who speak your name in rooms you've never entered. These are the people who don't need the spotlight to stand beside you. They show up when no one's watching. They tell you the truth when you're lost in your own head. And most importantly, they don't drain you. They pour into you. Having standards doesn't make you cold. It means you've been burned enough to know better. It means you value your energy enough to be intentional with who gets access to it. Some people only want proximity to your power, not partnership in your purpose. They'll smile with you, but never clap for you. They'll show love in public, but throw shade in private. That's why discernment matters. Who you surround yourself with influences how far you go, how deeply you heal, and how boldly you dream. A small, loyal circle can shift your entire life, while a crowd full of hidden enemies can sabotage your spirit. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. There's a difference between being lonely and being in the wrong company. Sometimes we cling to certain people out of history, not alignment. We confuse comfort with compatibility, and we keep entertaining those who no longer match the person we're becoming. But growth demands separation, and standards require solitude. If keeping your standards high means standing alone for a season, so be it. That's not loss, it's pruning. That's not punishment, it's protection. You can't elevate while being surrounded by people who normalize mediocrity, drama, and betrayal. The higher you climb, the quieter it gets. That's not rejection, that's redirection. God will often remove people before he blesses you, not to hurt you, but to clear your path. When your circle is filled with visionaries, encouragers, and truth tellers, you move differently. You speak differently. You heal differently. But that only happens when you stop settling for whoever's available and start choosing who's worthy. Not everyone is meant to grow with you. Not everyone is meant to know your heart. And that's okay. Protect your peace like it's gold, because it is. Keep your circle tight. Keep your standards high. And trust that what's meant for you won't need convincing to stay. People with low standards often attract high drama. When you open your life to anyone and everyone, you leave room for confusion, jealousy, and betrayal to walk right in. That's why boundaries are essential. That's why standards save you. They filter out the ones who are only around for convenience, not commitment. A small circle allows you to focus on quality over quantity. It creates space for depth, not just surface level connection. You start choosing friends who challenge you to grow, not ones who pressure you to shrink. You choose people who match your integrity, not just your interests. And most importantly, you no longer fear losing people who were never truly invested. That's freedom, that's power. When you've spent enough time around betrayal, you develop a radar for realness. You can feel when someone's presence is genuine and when it's performative. And once you've tasted peace, chaos becomes unattractive. You stop chasing attention and start protecting your alignment. Your circle becomes a reflection of your standards. And the higher your standards, the more peaceful your life becomes. That's not being picky, that's being purposeful. You're not shutting people out. You're choosing to let the right ones in. Some of the deepest pain comes from allowing the wrong people too close. They don't just hurt you, they learn your wounds and use them against you. That's why standards matter. That's why your circle can't be built on vibes and history alone. It has to be built on values, on trust, on respect. If someone constantly makes you question your worth, their place in your life should not be up for debate. People who love you right won't play with your heart, your time, or your peace. They'll protect your name in rooms you're not in. They'll check you when you're wrong and stand by you when you're broken. But you can't find those people when your standards are on the floor. You have to be willing to disappoint the wrong people to attract the right ones. You have to be okay with outgrowing certain circles and being misunderstood for choosing peace. Not everyone will understand your boundaries, but the right people will respect them. You don't need a tribe of thousands. You need a few solid souls who truly see you, who don't compete, who don't pretend, who don't disappear when things get real. That's what a high standard circle looks like. There's a cost to keeping your standards high, but the price of lowering them is much greater. You'll lose some friends. You'll outgrow some relationships. You'll walk alone when it feels easier to walk with a crowd. But what you gain is priceless. You gain peace that doesn't need to be earned. You gain loyalty that doesn't change with seasons. You gain relationships built on truth, not convenience. And most importantly, you gain clarity. You see who's really for you. Who claps when you win without bitterness? Who listens when you're struggling without judgment? Who stays when there's nothing left to gain? And once you experience that kind of alignment, you never settle for surface level connections again. You start moving different, talking different, loving different, because you know your worth. You know what you bring, and you refuse to be in spaces that make you question it. Keeping your circle small doesn't mean you hate people. It means you love yourself enough to protect your spirit. High standards don't make you difficult. They make you intentional. And the life you build around those choices, that becomes your sanctuary. Safe, strong, and full of purpose. At the end of the day, you have to live with the energy you allow into your life. You have to deal with the conversations, the attitudes, the intentions that surround you. So why not choose wisely? Why not guard your space like your peace depends on it? Because it does. Your inner circle should be a reflection of where you're headed, not a reminder of what you've outgrown. You're not who you were 5 years ago. You've been through battles, healing, and revelation. You've seen what fake love looks like up close. You've learned that I'm here for you doesn't always mean forever. And that's why you keep your circle small now, not from fear, but from growth. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not everyone qualifies for the journey you're on. And that's not cruel. That's necessary. Keep your standards high, even when it gets lonely. Keep them high, even when people call you difficult. Because the right ones will never ask you to lower them. They'll rise to meet them. They'll see your worth without needing to be reminded. So move forward with strength, protect your space, and know that a small circle built on loyalty is worth more than a crowd built on convenience. Sometimes the loudest message you can send is no message at all. There's power in walking away without a scene, without drama, without explanation. Silence is misunderstood because people confuse it with weakness, but silence is clarity. Silence is control. Silence is strength. When someone disrespects your boundaries, betrays your trust, or drains your energy, you don't owe them a speech. You don't need to scream or slam doors or beg to be understood. You just need to go quiet. That silence hits harder than any words ever could. It tells them you no longer have access to me. That's how you regain your peace. That's how you take your power back. People who are used to your kindness will be stunned by your silence. They'll start wondering why the same tactics that used to pull you back no longer work. But that's not your concern. Your healing isn't a performance, and your closure doesn't require their participation. When someone shows you who they are through patterns of disrespect or neglect, the most powerful thing you can do is believe them and move on in silence. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Not to hurt them, but to protect yourself. You don't need to announce your departure to people who never valued your presence. You don't have to post about cutting people off or explain how they failed you. Growth is quiet, healing is personal, maturity is silent. When you learn that not every battle needs to be fought, and not every insult deserves a response, you begin to operate from a place of power, not pain. There's something divine about rising without revenge. When you walk away with dignity, you rob people of the chaos they were hoping to keep you in. Some people thrive off reactions. They push your buttons just to see you break. But when you meet that chaos with silence, it confuses them. It unsettles them because they can't feed off what they can't reach. Silence isn't avoidance. It's elevation. It's saying you don't get to occupy space in my mind, my heart, or my spirit anymore. You choose peace over pettiness. You choose your future over their dysfunction. And in that choice, you reclaim your power. Real strength isn't in proving your point. It's in knowing you don't have to. Cutting someone off doesn't mean you hate them. It means you finally love yourself enough to stop tolerating what hurts. It means you're done playing roles and stories that only drain you. Sometimes people don't even realize how much they've taken from you until you stop giving. That silence, that absence, it speaks volumes. It forces them to sit with their own reflection without the distraction of your forgiveness, your explanations, or your emotional labor. You've tried conversations, you've tried boundaries, you've tried patience. But some people only hear the silence. Some people only learn through loss. And that's okay. You're not here to fix everyone. You're not here to carry relationships that only function when you're doing all the emotional work. There's a freedom that comes with letting go without bitterness. It doesn't mean you're heartless. It means you're healing. It means you're prioritizing your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. You don't need to be loud about it. Just exit quietly with your head held high and let your peace be the loudest thing they hear. Because silence is not the absence of power. It's the presence of self-respect. Sometimes people expect you to stay broken so they can continue being the hero. They're not comfortable with your silence because it takes away their control. When you go quiet, you take your story back. You shift the power dynamic. You're no longer giving them the attention, validation, or emotional reactions they fed on. That silence is a boundary. That silence is a statement: I will no longer be part of a dynamic that drains me. People notice when your energy is no longer available. They feel the absence of your love, your support, your understanding, and it unsettles them because you were consistent, you were kind, you were loyal until you weren't. until the weight became too much, until you realized your peace matters more than their comfort. And you didn't announce it. You didn't throw a tantrum. You just quietly stepped away. That's the kind of silence that makes noise. That's the kind of silence that echoes in their conscience. When you stop trying to explain, convince, or fix, you give yourself the gift of freedom. You step into a version of yourself that no longer settles for chaos disguised as connection. And that silence, that's your new power. The old version of you would have argued, would have begged, would have stayed, but not anymore. Not after everything you've seen, not after all the energy you've wasted trying to prove your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You've grown, you've evolved, and with that growth comes a sacred silence. You don't chase, you don't compete, you don't explain, you just observe and act accordingly. When the patterns show themselves, when the intentions become clear, you respond with distance, not to punish them, but to protect you. Silence is a boundary that doesn't need to be spoken. It's the invisible wall that says, access denied. Not everyone deserves to know what's in your heart. Not everyone should be able to disturb your peace. And when you stop responding to chaos, it starts to die because it can't survive without your energy. So you stop feeding it. You stop participating in it. And you let your absence do what your presence never could. Teach them a lesson they won't forget. That's power. That's wisdom. That's growth. There's beauty in detaching quietly. It doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't hurt. It just means you learned how to protect your soul. You've cried in silence over people who never even noticed your tears. You supported others in their storms while drowning in your own, and still you stayed kind. You stayed loyal. But now you're learning, you're evolving. You're realizing that your silence is no longer rooted in fear, it's rooted in clarity. You know who drains you. You know who values you. You've stopped giving repeated access to people who only show up when it's convenient. Silence is your new standard. It's how you protect your peace, your purpose, and your power. You're not emotionally shutting down. You're spiritually leveling up. You're choosing to speak less and observe more, to react less and reflect more. And in doing so, you've discovered that the people who are meant for you won't need to be chased or explained. They'll align, they'll respect, they'll stay. So stay silent, not because you're afraid, but because you're wise. Stay silent, not out of defeat, but out of strength. In a world obsessed with loud exits and public feuds, choosing silence is an act of rebellion. It's the refusal to let others drag you into their chaos. It's the decision to walk away with your dignity intact. You don't need the last word. You don't need to expose them. Let them talk, let them lie, let them twist the narrative. The truth doesn't need defending, it reveals itself in time. Your silence is not submission, it's strategy. It's you choosing to rise above the noise. It's you deciding that your peace is worth more than proving a point. When you cut someone off without a scene, you rob them of the drama they crave. You take back control of your own story. You stop being a character in someone else's chaos and start being the author of your own peace. That's how you heal, that's how you grow. That's how you win, quietly, powerfully, without ever needing to shout. Let your energy speak. Let your boundaries speak. Let your absence speak. Because when it's all said and done, silence speaks the loudest truth of all. Sometimes silence is the most honest goodbye you'll ever give. No text, no confrontation, no explanation, just a closed door that no longer swings open. That's how you end a cycle. That's how you honor your growth. You don't always need to scream your worth at people who are too blind to see it. You don't need to keep proving that your heart was pure, or your love was real, or your loyalty was consistent. If they couldn't appreciate that when you were present, they don't deserve a front row seat to your evolution. So you go quiet, you stop trying. You stop giving them updates on your healing. You stop giving them chances to repeat the same pain. That silence is your shield. That silence is your closure. You don't need them to understand. You need to be free. And once you realize that, you'll stop looking back. You'll stop waiting for the apology that never comes. You'll stop needing validation from people who could never see your value. Silence becomes your peace treaty with yourself, a promise that you will no longer betray your own spirit just to keep others comfortable. And that promise That's where your true power begins. Pain changes people. It can break you or build you, silence you or strengthen you. But what separates those who fall apart from those who rise is a single choice: what you do with that pain. See, every scar tells a story, but it doesn't have to be a story of defeat. It can be a story of resilience, of strength, of overcoming the very thing that tried to destroy you. When you stop seeing pain as punishment and start recognizing it as a lesson, something shifts inside you. You begin to understand that you weren't buried, you were planted. And now it's time to grow. The people who betrayed you, the moments that broke your heart, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, they were all part of a process meant to forge you into something stronger. Don't run from that pain. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Face it, feel it, then use it. Let it light a fire inside you. Let it push you forward. You can't erase what happened, but you can rewrite what it means. Your pain doesn't define you, but your response to it does. And when you choose to turn that pain into power, you take back control of your life. You are not the person you were before the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss. And that's okay. Pain doesn't leave you the same. It transforms you. It strips away illusions and exposes what really matters. It teaches you who's real and who's temporary. It reveals your deepest strength, the kind you didn't know you had until being strong was your only choice. Maybe you had to learn the hard way. Maybe you gave your all to people who gave you half. Maybe you believed in something that broke you. But that doesn't make you weak, that makes you human. And being human means sometimes you bleed. But if you can bleed, you can heal. If you can hurt, you can rise. The people who hurt you weren't just mistakes. They were mirrors. They showed you what you will never accept again. They taught you boundaries. They taught you self-respect. And now your pain is no longer a weight. It's fuel. Let it drive you. Let it remind you every day that you survived something meant to break you. And if you can survive that, you can overcome anything. You've got power now. Power that came from your deepest wounds. And no one can take that from you. There's something sacred about the moment you stop asking why me and start saying watch me. That shift is where your power lives. Pain tries to keep you in the past, in the hurt, in the memory. But you're not meant to live there. You're meant to move forward, wiser, stronger, more grounded than ever before. Every time you get up after being knocked down, you're building something powerful inside you. You're teaching yourself that your soul is bigger than your suffering. And that's not just strength transformation. Pain will whisper lies to you, that you're not enough, that it's your fault, that it'll never get better. But when you've had enough of that voice, something rises in you. A determination to rewrite your story, to say this pain ends with me. That's where you take back your power. That's where you stop being a victim and start becoming the warrior. You may still carry the memory, but it no longer controls you. You may still feel the sting, but it no longer defines you. You've stepped into a new version of yourself, one shaped by the fire, not destroyed by it. And from here, there's nothing you can't rise above. People will see your glow, but never understand the fire it took to create it. They'll admire your strength, but they'll never fully grasp the pain behind it. And that's okay. Your story isn't for everyone to understand. It's for you to honor. Every tear you cried had purpose. Every sleepless night shaped you. And every time you chose to keep going, even when everything in you wanted to give up, you were building something unshakable. That's what turning pain into power looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's the quiet decision you make every morning to get back up, to love yourself deeper, to walk in purpose even when the past tries to pull you back. It's deciding you will no longer be bitter. You will be better. You will no longer be ashamed of your scars. You will show them with pride. Because those scars are proof that you've been through something real, something hard, and you survived it. That's your power. That's your fire. And no one can take that away from you. So let them see your strength. Let them feel your presence. But know that the most powerful part of you is what they can't see. The battle you won within. When you go through deep pain, there's a temptation to shut down, to close your heart, to build walls instead of bridges. But pain doesn't mean you have to stop loving. It means you learn to love yourself first. That's where the power comes in. You stop looking for validation in broken places. You stop begging for love that wounds you. And you start becoming the person you needed. Pain will try to make you hard, bitter, cold, but strength is not about becoming numb. It's about feeling deeply and still choosing to rise. It's about letting the pain teach you but not control you. It's about knowing your worth even when others didn't see it. And most of all, it's about honoring your journey. Every step, every stumble, every lesson. You didn't go through all that just to survive. You went through it so you could thrive. You went through it to become someone more resilient, more aware, more powerful. And now you walk differently. You speak differently. You love differently. Not because you're broken, but because you've been rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. That's what pain does when you don't let it own you. It elevates you. You weren't meant to live in your pain. You were meant to pass through it. It was a chapter, not the whole book. And now that chapter is behind you, not because it didn't matter, but because it made you matter more. It's easy to let pain define your future, to let fear lead the way, but you're stronger than that. You've already proven it. So many times you stood when everything inside you was crumbling. You smiled through the tears. You pushed through the silence. You loved even when you were barely holding on, and through all of that you built resilience. Now instead of hiding from your pain, you harness it. You turn your wounds into wisdom, your heartbreak into hunger, your struggle into strength. That's real power. The kind of power that can't be taught in comfort. It has to be earned in the fire. You've earned it, you fought for it, and now it's yours. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just keep walking in that quiet strength. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep letting your past fuel your purpose. Because when you use pain as your teacher, every tear becomes a stepping stone to greatness. One day you'll look back and realize that the pain you thought would break you actually built you. That the moments you cursed became the moments that changed you. And that the very thing you once asked God to take away was the thing he used to prepare you. Life will throw storms your way, but your power is in how you respond. You can't control what happened to you, but you can control what you do with it. So take the pain and create something powerful. Speak your truth. Chase your dreams. Love harder, live louder, be a light, because that pain gave you perspective. It opened your eyes. It showed you what truly matters, and it gave you a strength that no one can take. So don't hide your story. Share it. Own it. Let it inspire others. You never know who needs to hear how you turned your pain into purpose, how you transformed your darkest days into your brightest calling. Your life is living proof that pain can shape power, and that power, when used with purpose, changes everything. You didn't just survive, you rose. You overcame. And now you shine, not despite the pain, but because of it. When we look back at everything we've endured, all the pain we've carried, all the betrayal, heartbreak, and disappointments, we realize something powerful. We realize that every moment of suffering wasn't in vain. It shaped us. It matured us. It forced us to dig deep and find a strength we didn't even know existed. Pain doesn't come into your life to destroy you. It comes to reveal you. It peels back the layers. It burns off the distractions, and it places you face to face with your truth. And once you've stared into that truth, you rise differently. You love differently. You speak differently. You know who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. That's the blessing hidden in the storm. You walk away from it with a clearer mind, a stronger heart, and a spirit that's been refined by fire. You learn to stop chasing apologies and start watching actions. You stop clinging to what God is trying to remove. You realize silence holds more power than any angry word ever could. You stop trying to fix people who broke you, and instead start healing the parts of yourself you abandoned for their comfort. And through it all, you learn that your peace is sacred. Your standards are not negotiable. Your circle gets smaller, but your spirit gets freer. You no longer tolerate chaos just to feel loved. You no longer lower your voice just to be heard. You've turned the pain into power, and now you're unstoppable. You are no longer defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you rose from it. So if you're still in the fire, still walking through the storm, remember this: you're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're being refined. You're being rebuilt. And when you come out of it, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more purposeful than ever before. Trust the process, even when it's painful. Trust the silence, even when it's deafening. Trust yourself, even when you feel broken. Because healing is not loud, it's quiet. It's the way your soul whispers, keep going. It's the way your heart still chooses to love, even after it's been shattered. That's power. That's resilience. That's who you are now. And to anyone who doubted you, mistreated you, or tried to break you, let them watch. Let them see how gracefully you rise, how powerfully you walk, how peacefully you protect your energy now. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You owe it to yourself to keep becoming, to keep evolving, to keep shining, no matter what tried to dim your light. Thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling this message with your whole heart. May you continue to walk in strength, in wisdom, and in grace. God bless you. Keep going, keep rising, and never forget, you are more powerful than your pain.